What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Comic Source. My name is Billy, and today we're going to be recapping Phase 4 of the MCU. And since we're doing that, we have to do everyone's favorite, a ranking. We have to rank it. We have to. Okay, time out. Listen, so I'm editing this video, and suddenly I realize I'd never recorded the what if segment of the ranking. Yeah, I know. But that subsequently, I didn't put it on the list when I was doing the recording, if that makes sense. So on screen is going to be the correct ranking, right? Throughout the video, it's going to display the correct 16 ranked items, not 15 as I was doing in the video. But the past version of me is just he's going to be off by one for every ranking. I'm sorry, I know that's weird, but I'm going to put the present day version of me saying my thoughts on what if exactly where it goes on the board. So I'm not going to spoil it, but wherever I put what if on the board, I'm just going to end up having to say that number twice. All right, thank you for tuning in. Let's get right into it. We have 15 projects to get through, not including I Am Groot because it's too small. I didn't even know where to put it in the ranking. I mean, it was cool to watch, like it was pretty fun, but it's not, it's not like as big as these other projects. So I just kind of left it to the side. All right, and starting off at number 15th, last place, The Eternals. What a mess. Before the movie came out, I was like preaching up and down. I was like, oh yeah, you know what? The Eternals, a low-key group as far as, like the casual fan base goes. I didn't even know about them when the movie was announced. I had to do some extra research. I figured it was going to be kind of like the Guardians, you know what I mean? Where nobody really knew about the Guardians until they came out. And then they were a household sensation. They grabbed the entirety of the earth, right? I thought the Eternals was going to do the exact same thing. But no. All of the jokes and the insults that people have regarding Marvel's like lack of antagonists and like just really flat villains overall, all of that is highlighted in this movie. Like the villain just doesn't matter. I honestly could not tell you what the actual name of it was. I could see it in my head. I'm gonna put a picture up of it, but nobody cares. No, nobody cares. Besides Gilgamesh and Phastos, nobody has any personality in this movie. It's a boring snooze fest whenever the two of them are not on the screen. And then of course, similar to Thor: The Dark World, where terrible movie, but I'm sure this is going to have some great impact on the MCU in the future because, Celestials, the whole thing. But it has absolutely no rewatchability whatsoever. The only redeeming factor really is that the cinematography is beautiful, but, it's what you get for shooting on location. They should probably do that for more of these movies. I'm not going to sit here and dog on it any longer, but yeah, 5.4 out of 10 on the Billy scale, and that's gonna run at 15th place. And then 14th place, we have our first Disney Plus series on the list, Hawkeye. You want to know how I feel about Hawkeye?
There is no passion, there is no vision, there is no aggression.
There is nothing. I remember thinking, like when I watched the show, that I was enjoying myself just because, the Christmas vibe, the whole thing. And then once you get to the finale, it just doesn't feel like anything's wrapped up because there is nothing to wrap up. There's nothing going on in this show. The only thing that they did was bring back Wilson Fisk and introduce Echo. Besides that, I really don't care. But that being said, I am intrigued for the Echo show. I think that could be good, but we'll see. Oh, and then a slap on my own wrist for forgetting that Yelena was definitely the best part of the series. Like, she came in, stole the show, and left. But with that being said, I am eternally grateful for them bringing back Wilson Fisk, but even with them bringing back Wilson Fisk, they still get a 5.8 out of 10. And then coming in at 13th place, Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Now, this is one that I don't really even want to dog on because I don't care how much they deny it. This show was torn apart by COVID. They say that this is exactly how they wanted it, but you can literally see where episodes are pieced together because they weren't able to get any more footage. And you can see how different story threads were ripped apart and put back together the best way that they could. But overall, this show really isn't much. It could have been great if, they weren't screwed over by a global pandemic. And of course, I love the message that they're trying to send with the finale. But the only way that I can describe it is they hovered over the button, but didn't press it. Falcon talking to the senators in the street really has no implication on whether or not they're going to do their jobs well. Don't say, do. But yeah, again, I love the message. Just the way that they went about it just doesn't really make sense. It feels like they just wanted to send the message without even putting in any actual work. But with all that being said, Falcon and Winter Soldier gets a flat 6 out of 10. And then moving up into the 12th spot, we have She-Hulk. Now let's get past the elephant in the room. I really don't care for or about the bro dudes on Twitter saying that She-Hulk shouldn't be twerking, Daredevil can't make jokes, Daredevil can't hook up with She-Hulk. Oh no, are we gonna act like this isn't what he was doing in the Netflix show? We're gonna act like he wasn't sitting there being charismatic and having sex with every woman he comes across? Come on, let's grow up. And then past that, the message that they were sending with the finale, and then, woven in a little bit throughout the episodes of sextortion and the danger of, hooking up with people in the social media age, especially as a celebrity, right? But it didn't feel like that was actually the point of the whole series, if that makes sense. Like, it kind of felt disconnected, so to speak. It's a fun show to watch, but overall, I don't think that it's really like that cohesive. As far as specifics go, I really wish that more of the courtroom scenes had her like tap dancing, just like being way smarter than everybody else in the room, like with some crazy legalese lingo or whatever, you know what I mean? Instead of just the punchline that they kept doing. They kept doing a punchline that would end the court case, and it was just like, what are we doing? It's not even that funny. Like, I like this show as a comedy, but certain pieces of it I wish that they would have used to portray her more as like an elite lawyer rather than using those courtroom cases just to throw in some more jokes. But on a positive note, I love breaking the fourth wall. That's one of my favorite things in movies and shows. I felt like they did that really well, especially the big reveal of Kevin. That was really fun. I know some people didn't like that because it's on the nose, but isn't breaking the fourth wall on the nose? Like, isn't that the point? And on top of that, the CGI for Daredevil's acrobatics has me so excited for his show. So that's why it gets a 6.1 out of 10. And now we're going to move on to number 11, Black Widow. The one that deserved way more than she got. Now listen, we all know that it's not Scarlett Johansson's fault, but we all know this movie was too late. We said it when it came out. We said it before it came out. We were screaming at the top of the hilltops for a Black Widow movie. This movie deserved to come out around phase 2, the beginning of phase 3, maybe, or maybe even like right after Captain America: The Winter Soldier. But putting this movie out after she's already dead, just as kind of like here you go. It just took away from anything that this movie could be. Now, I know that they didn't actually throw it at her like, hey, here you go, finally. It was more of like, they didn't think that it would get widely accepted back then, but now we know it's okay, so here you go. But nevertheless, too late. Aside from that, they were able to put together a great cast. Everybody loves to see David Harbour and Florence Pugh, and then obviously Scarlett Johansson. And then, of course, after this moment, Florence Pugh has taken over every bit of screen that she's ever appeared in the MCU. She's just fantastic. And I'm excited to see what they do with Yelena and the Red Guardian when the Thunderbolts and everything comes out. That's going to be really interesting to see. And also, I hope that if they bring back Taskmaster, they do it a little bit differently. You can't have Taskmaster without free will. Like, I hope that if they're going to bring her back, I hope she has free will and she's able to act more like purposefully devious. Does that make sense? Because Taskmaster just being a puppet for some dude just is ass. It's terrible. But that was not the move. But they were able to put down, like the basic concepts of Taskmaster, and they were able to have some cool fight scenes with it. So I hope that they take this little bit that they did right here and then bring her back next time. Let her have free will, and then let her actually just go apeshit. Because Taskmaster is a really cool character, and bringing Taskmaster in, weaving it into the Black Widow story how they did, just to have her be underneath somebody else's thumb, is just terrible. But I truly think that if they did this Black Widow movie earlier, it would have ranked up there with the Winter Soldier. I was saying that we should put this out after the Winter Soldier, but it really would have been up there in quality. It would have been right next to the Winter Soldier if we had got it at the right time and it was able to impact the MCU in a real way, not just in retrospect. But with all that being said, Black Widow gets a 6.2 out of 10 on the scale. And then on to number 10 on the list, we have Thor: Love and Thunder. The real disappointment of this phase. I absolutely loved the Ragnarok. Loved it. But this was just a little bit over the edge. But in this movie, it felt like for half of it, they wanted to ramp up the comedy. And then the other half, Christian Bale's half, they ramped it all the way down. And it felt like oil and water. Like the actual overall tone of the movie and the tone of Gorr the God Butcher just don't fit together at all. And it sucks because I loved Christian Bale's performance as Gore. I thought it would have been really good if the movie actually fit. And then it falls into the same trap that, Eternals and Black Widow fall into, which is that it's just entirely forgettable. The redeeming quality that it has is that, Chris Hemsworth is always going to be charismatic when he's on the screen as Thor. Although I didn't enjoy the story choices that he made here, Taika Waititi is still a great director, so everything is gorgeous in this movie. The different color palettes, especially the way that the colors look on screen, especially with the way that Thor interacts with Lady Thor and like how they look on screen, it looks cool. Obviously the battle when everything was in black and white looked really cool, but we're 300 movies in now. It can't just look cool, you know what I mean? But there really isn't much to write home about, so 6.5 out of 10. Let's move on. All right, so number 10 on the board is going to be What If. There was a lot of fun episodes. Overall, it wasn't, like the greatest in the world, but I thought it was a lot of fun. I liked it a lot more than other people did. The one that sticks out to me is episode 4. Somehow they told the entire tragic story of Anakin Skywalker through Doctor Strange in under 40 minutes. And then also the fact that we get Chadwick Boseman's final performance as T'Challa, and they did him very well in that episode. And then, seeing Ultron at full power, I thought that was cool. Some people thought that him killing Thanos like that was cheap, but it's okay. But overall, it just didn't, impact everybody as much as it really could have. But I just hope maybe in season 2 and beyond, they just do something more similar to what James Gunn is trying to develop with the DC, where he's doing DC Elseworlds, where like they're going to be doing stuff that's not actually connected to the universe, but it's its own entity. And as of right now, we're not really sure, I guess, if they're just going to be using that just to finish off the old DC universe and then do like a couple things, or if it's going to be really like a lot of content in that world. But Marvel could do that same type of thing. But with that being said, it's going to get a 7 out of 10, which lands it at 10 on my list. And then number 9 on the list. Finally, we're into the section where I can start to talk a little bit happier about what we're watching, but we're still not there yet quite fully. Because, Doctor Strange, the fact that this movie is like just fun to watch in general is propping it up a lot. Like this movie does have rewatchability just because it is entertaining. But it's just weird. For a movie that states that it has the multiverse and that it has, madness, it was pretty quaint and contained. I hope that when Quantumania comes out, they deal with the multiverse a little bit better. I saw a report yesterday saying that the quantum realm is basically just the basement for the multiverse, which is such a sick concept. Like, you go into the basement, you have your little knickknacks and like the piano from grandma that you never touched or whatever. But imagine that for the entirety of the multiverse. And I just hope that they go crazy in that one because they did not here. I love Sam Raimi. I love Benedict Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange. I, to a point, enjoyed the cameos that we got, but for whatever reason, it just doesn't feel right. And I don't know if it's because of the whole meme about them giving Scarlet Witch the whole plan and letting her just sort of take over when they could have just attacked her to begin with, but I don't know. But it is cool to see Reed Richards, and it is cool to see John Krasinski as Reed Richards. That's been the fan cast since the beginning of time. But I just feel like at every turn where they chose to do something in this movie, it was the first choice. They could have did so much more. And with that being said, Doctor Strange is going to get a 7.7. And like I said, that one is definitely boosted up a lot by the rewatchability, just because it's so much fun. All right, now moving into the 8th spot, something that I actually enjoyed quite a bit, Moon Knight. Now, we'll get my one singular gripe out of the way. This show started off as a fire psychological thriller, but then by the time we got to the finale, we got a giant kaiju fight that nobody cares about. My only gripe, but 99% of this show is elite. Obviously, the show is spearheaded by the performance of Oscar Isaac, just a world-class actor. And then, of course, to have the dynamic between him and Ethan Hawke as the villain. And then I also love the authenticity of having an Egyptian filmmaker. I feel like in the past, that's something that they definitely would have phoned in. They would have just gotten somebody that, maybe there's somebody that they've worked with before, or somebody that just has, general prowess in the filmmaking community, and that they would bring him in to make this. But the fact that they got an actual Egyptian filmmaker, they were filming in Egypt, everything had definitely like a certain sense of fluidity to it. And then there's also just a certain beauty to the shots in this show, especially the one where they were moving the sky. Like, we all know about that one. But if they had hit that final note in the finale, hit that note on the head, and finished it off as the psychological thriller that it started out as, and not just a kaiju fight, it probably would have gotten a 10 from me. And then, of course, it falls into the same trap that you're going to see me say a lot when it comes to these Disney Plus shows. 6 episodes was not the move. We didn't want a kind of extended movie cut into 6 parts. We want an actual show. 10 to 12 episodes, 50 minutes, the traditional show format. You cannot flesh out a true story on a TV format in 6 episodes. They failed time and time again with this until they finally fixed it with Andor. And what happened? Oh, yeah. Everybody loves Andor. But moving on to the most endearing show or movie on this list, Ms. Marvel. This show would be a flat 10 for me if they kept that artistic theme that they were showing in the first episode. They showed it a couple times, especially when they were going through the city. They had the animations going across the walls, but I wanted that the whole time. I know it's kind of extra for me to be asking for that, but I really like that. Like that singular artistic choice that they chose to do in the first episode, as well as a couple others, just kind of encapsulates the feeling that I get while watching this show, where they were able to do closer to a kids show or like a family-friendly kids show without it being campy or corny at any point. Like it truly felt that this is actually what kids act like. This is not some played up event where it's like they're acting way older than they actually are. They're not acting like 4-year-olds. The family dynamic was obviously what pushes the whole thing forward, right? And I loved it. And then, of course, bringing back the curse of only having 6 episodes, a fault of that is that you don't have time to flesh out a group like the Clandestines, who were wholly kind of just forgettable. But I'm okay with that because, you know, it's give and take. They gave us the Clandestines, who we're going to forget about, but they also gave us the mutants, who we're never going to forget about. It's about damn time. And I'm glad that they put so much weight on when he said the word mutant, because obviously that's a huge moment for everybody. But with that being said, 9 out of 10. Let's move on to the next one. And coming in 6th on the list, a surprising addition to the group. I say surprising because I don't think coming into Phase 4, I don't think anybody was expecting anything like this. But this was just such a change of pace from what we've been getting, and I loved it. I love that it's a small scale introduction to monsters and demons in Marvel for when Blade comes in. I love the style of how this was shot. They didn't deviate from the tone and just the overall style that they were going for. And the tone itself wasn't too dark. It also wasn't too light. They were able to keep that balance throughout the whole thing. And then on top of that, round of applause, Michael Giacchino, a legendary composer who basically wrote the score to our childhood. This is his directing debut? Go off, man. Go off. I hope that they do a Halloween special every year, because where the Guardians holiday special was more like, it definitely felt like an aside, like it felt like I'm watching this outside of the MCU and just kind of having fun with it. This was simultaneously a special, moved the MCU forward a little bit, and was tremendous just standalone. Like, I don't think I'm going to go back and watch the Guardians holiday special again, but I'll definitely watch Werewolf by Night again. And that's why it gets a 9.1 out of 10 and lands itself on 6th on the list. And next on the list is Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. I really enjoyed the avenues that each of the main cast goes down on this movie. You know, Okoye finds purpose in herself rather than just being the Dora Milaje lead. Shuri finds herself on the same path as T'Challa in Civil War and obviously chooses not to enact revenge, which is why I was kind of confused why people are pissed off at what Shuri was doing in this movie. Because it's like, we weren't pissed when T'Challa was doing it. It's 1 for 1. So what are we mad at? And then, of course, M'Baku takes on more of like a wise elder / mentor role while obviously still being a warrior. I just really like that choice because they easily could just fall into the trope of only doing that scene where he was trying to fight Namor, and then obviously Namor messes him up. They could have just been doing that over and over again. He's just a meathead, but instead they give him knowledge, they make him wise, and somebody that Shuri would want to go to for advice. I like that. And then obviously the emotional dilemma that the Queen is finding herself in. Something that I saw Angela Bassett say, which was perfect, which was Queen Ramonda has to lose her husband, then her son, and then is losing her daughter to revenge, all while having to sit on the seat that her son is supposed to be sitting on. I'm not going to say anything else. We did tremendous. And then, of course, Tenoch Huerta's performance as Namor was tremendous. He was able to keep that balance where he was obviously showing Shuri what his motivations are without being too soft in that scenario. And then he was obviously able to be a cold villain when they were attacking Wakanda, but without going too over the top. Like, you could still see his motivations coming clean through. It's just unfortunate that we couldn't see what Ryan Coogler's original vision was for Black Panther 2. And then on top of that, I wish we could have seen what Chadwick would have done with this movie as well. especially with everything that's happened in the past couple years. I just know he would have been tremendous in this. But rest in peace, Chadwick. Love you. Black Panther Wakanda Forever gets a 9.2 out of 10. Let's go on to the next one. Now for the next one, I'm just gonna say this beforehand. This is 3A and 3B. I could not decide which one I wanted to put above the other, so they're tied. I couldn't decide. But I obviously can't talk about both of them at the same time, so next up is Loki. Obviously, my only issue with this show is that it was only 6 episodes. I feel like if they did 10 to 12, what was a tremendous introduction into what Kang is going to be, the multiverse, the TVA, what was that tremendous show could have been even greater. I just wish I could go back in time to when this show was coming out, because it had all of us by a chokehold and you could feel the love pouring through into this show. I remember seeing a report about Kate Herron, who directed this series. She's just a huge fan of the source material. And when they asked her to make her pitch, she just came through with a fully fleshed out story that was already finished, because she had so much love for the character, and that was oozing through every pore of this show. The only reason that it's not a 10 is, like I said, 6 episodes. I feel like there's not much you can do, but with the amount of time that they had, they did the most that they could, and I love them for it. So with that being said, Loki gets a 9.4, and we'll move on to what's tied with it, WandaVision. It's kind of exciting to talk about WandaVision again, considering that was the first set of videos that I put out on the channel. And WandaVision, Loki, Moon Knight, what I thought these shows were going to be was the start of just really abstract work from Marvel. And I guess we are kind of getting that, with Werewolf by Night and everything. But the creativity in this show just goes crazy. I loved how every episode was woven in differently with a different stylistic choice, obviously a different era of sitcoms. And then I remember waiting every episode for just something weird to happen. There is obviously the annoyance of Ralph Bohner. I feel like that just wasn't a great choice. It just kind of felt like a screw you to our face, sort of. But I mean, we all know that we're going to get these characters anyway. But besides that, this show is perfect. And I don't need to say it, but I'm going to say it. 6 episodes. Could have done a little bit more, But with that being said, it's tied with Loki, so obviously it gets a 9.4 out of 10. And then number 2 on the list, we're back to the movies. Shang-Chi. Again, one of the first videos I made on the channel. I didn't actually review it. I just did like a trailer breakdown, so to speak. But it's always fun to revisit that kind of stuff. But I loved this movie. I watched it in the theaters multiple times. It's one of the best origin stories in the MCU. I love Simu Liu's portrayal and care for the character. There was all the stories coming out about how he was saying that, and it's true, that the character of Shang-Chi was written by old white men in the 60s, and that everything that he said was just a proverb and wasn't really realistic or how people act at all. So he interwove what an actual Asian American would act like in today's society. And I love that because, he obviously baselined, he cares about the character enough to do that, period. And then on top of that, what it does for the character and what it does for the movie is just astronomical. And then obviously on the flip side of that, it's cool to see another corner of the MCU. I love magic. I love magical creatures. So that whole space was really, really cool for me. And then my favorite part of the movie is the choreography, which, it's an action movie. It's basically a kung fu movie. The action needs to be on point, right? And not only did they make it on point, they throw in some Jackie Chan style physical comedy. Absolutely tremendous. And then let's take a second just to throw a round of applause for that bus scene. But with that being said, this gorgeous movie gets a 9.5 out of 10. And then coming in at the number 1 spot, Spider-Man No Way Home. If you'd like my extended thoughts and opinion on this, I do have a podcast where TKD and Orly and I, we go through it in detail. Right after we saw it, we're hopped up on the dopamine. We all love this movie. I know that some people are against the nostalgia, but I feel like they were able to balance it really well with how the story worked. And the fact that the other 2 Spider-Man were able to teach Tom Holland's Spider-Man what it truly means to be Spider-Man. And the fact that they were able to interwove, just the meme of Uncle Ben just being the focal point of what makes a Spider-Man a Spider-Man. And that, the central point of that being with great power comes great responsibility. I feel like that's tremendous writing. And I feel like the fact that people are just calling it nostalgia bait is kind of just a cop-out. If you don't like the movie, that's okay. But I loved it. and that's why it has the highest score on the list, giving it a 9.6 out of 10. Wrapping things up, the MCU is at an interesting pivot point right now. We're days away from the release of Ant-Man Quantumania, and some are starting to fall off the MCU wagon. I'm not one of them. I hope for the continued expansion of this lore and the pushing of what is currently the filmmaking boundary of the MCU. We've achieved that to a point in Phase 4, with WandaVision, Loki, Moon Knight, Shang-Chi, Werewolf by Night, but we're also getting what some would call the tropey Marvel project, like Black Widow, Eternals, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and Doctor Strange. I feel like the pivot point that I'm mentioning could propel them into a great Phase 5, obviously led by Kang, played by Jonathan Majors, who seems to have not only a great care for the character, but just a great care for just being a legend. He wants his name to ring out. Himself, Jonathan Majors, not just Kang. So I know that he's going to put everything he has into this character. And if the people behind the scenes can put everything they have into these films and put all of the love and care that they injected into Phase 1 through 3 into Phase 5, I know this is going to be legendary. But that was the status update for the MCU. I'm very excited to see what they do with Ant-Man. I hope, like I said before, that they can really just go off with the multiverse, get creative, get stupid, make it weird. No, let's not go that weird, but still. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know exactly how I was wrong, because I mean, we don't have the same list. I know we don't. So tell me where I was wrong in the comments. Tell me what your guys' list was. Besides that, thank you guys for watching. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Peace.